D1 stood in his small room at the research station, folding his clothes into a travel bag. His hands moved slowly, as if trying to delay what had to happen. Outside the window, the twin suns of Velora were setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange that Earth never had. He had seen this sunset 1,000 times in 3 years, but tonight it felt different. Tonight it felt like goodbye. The message on his tablet had been clear. All human researchers must leave Velora immediately. Political tensions between Earth and the Veloran government had reached a breaking point. The transport ship would arrive in 6 hours. No exceptions. No delays. D1 sat on his bed and looked around the room. 3 years of his life had happened here. 3 years of studying Veloran biology, learning their language, understanding their culture. 3 years of the most important work he had ever done. 3 years of Hera. He picked up a small stone from his desk. It was smooth and blue, with tiny white spots that looked like stars. Hera had given it to him during his first week on Velora. She had been assigned as his cultural liaison, his guide to understanding her people. She was young for a Veloran, barely into adulthood by their standards, but she was smart and patient. "This stone is from the northern mountains," she had told him in her careful, accented English. "We give these to friends, to people we want to understand us." He had been just another researcher to her then. Another curious human who asked too many questions and did not understand basic Veloran customs. But she had smiled when she gave him the stone, and something in that smile had made him want to be worthy of the gift. Over the months, Hera had taught him everything. How to greet Veloran elders with respect, which foods were safe for humans to eat and which would make him sick. The difference between a polite laugh and an amused laugh in Veloran culture. How to read the subtle color changes in Veloran skin that showed emotion. They had spent hours together. At first, it was always about work. She would take him to Veloran communities and introduce him to families. She would explain why certain rituals mattered. She would correct his terrible pronunciation of Veloran words and laugh when he got the tones completely wrong. But somewhere along the way, it had become more than work. D1 remembered the evening 6 months ago when Hera had brought him to her family home. Her parents had prepared a traditional meal, and Hera had sat beside him, quietly explaining each dish. Her younger brother had asked D1 1,000 questions about Earth. Her mother had watched him carefully, the way mothers everywhere watch strangers near their children. At the end of the night, Hera's father had placed a hand on D1's shoulder. "You respect our ways," he had said in Veloran. "This is rare for humans. You are welcome here." Hera had smiled at him as they walked back to the research station that night. Not the polite smile she used for work. A real smile, warm and genuine. Her skin had flickered with soft gold light, the Veloran sign of happiness. "My father likes you," she had said. "He never says that about outsiders." "Your family is kind," D1 had replied. "Thank you for bringing me." "I wanted them to meet you," Hera had said quietly. "I wanted them to know that not all humans are the same." After that night, something had shifted between them. Their conversations grew longer. They began meeting even when there was no research to discuss. Hera would bring him local fruits to try. D1 would tell her stories about Earth, about cities and oceans and snow, things her people had never seen. They had started eating meals together most evenings. Hera would cook Veloran dishes in the research station kitchen, and D1 would try to make Earth food with limited ingredients. They would sit across from each other and talk about everything. About their worlds, about their families, about what they hoped for in their lives. D1 had not meant to care about her so much. He had not planned for her laugh to become his favorite sound. He had not expected to look forward to seeing her every day, to feel empty on the rare days when she was busy elsewhere. But caring about someone and being able to do something about it were different things. There were rules, boundaries. He was a researcher and she was his liaison. More than that, he was human and she was Veloran. Their governments had barely established diplomatic relations. Personal relationships between their species were not forbidden exactly, but they were not encouraged either. So D1 had kept his feelings quiet. He had been professional. He had tried to treat their friendship as just that, friendship, nothing more. But then, 3 weeks ago, his supervisor had called him into her office. "You are spending too much time with the Veloran liaison," she had said. Her voice had been cold. "Other researchers have noticed. This is not appropriate." "Hira is helping me understand Veloran culture," D1 had protested. "That is her job. Her job is to assist all researchers, not to be your personal companion," his supervisor had replied. "You will limit your interactions with her to professional matters only." D1 had tried. He really had. But how do you stop caring about someone just because you are told to? How do you pretend that months of friendship mean nothing? Now it did not matter. He was leaving. The decision had been made far above his level. Political problems he did not fully understand were pulling him away from Velora, away from his research, away from Hira. He should tell her. He should go to her home and explain. He should say goodbye properly. But D1 knew that if he saw her, he might not be able to leave. If he looked into her eyes and saw the hurt there, he might do something stupid. He might refuse to board the transport. He might cause problems that would affect all human researchers, not just himself. And there was another reason. His supervisor had made it very clear in her final message. "You are not to contact the Veloran liaison before departure. Any communication could be seen as sharing sensitive information during a diplomatic crisis. This is an order." So D1 would leave in silence. He would get on the transport ship and go back to Earth. He would let Hira think whatever she needed to think. Maybe she would understand. Maybe she would realize that sometimes people had no choice. Or maybe she would hate him. He put the blue stone in his pocket. He could not leave it behind. Whatever happened, he wanted to keep this one piece of Velora with him. The transport ship landed 2 hours later. D1 walked across the research station grounds with his single bag. Other researchers were also leaving, all of them quiet and grim. This was not how any of them had wanted their work to end. As D1 climbed the ramp into the ship, he turned back one last time. The research station looked small under the Veloran sky. Somewhere in the settlement beyond, Hira was probably at home with her family. She did not know he was leaving. She did not know she would wake up tomorrow and find him gone. D1 touched the stone in his pocket and walked into the ship. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. Through the window, he watched Velora grow smaller and smaller as they lifted into space. He had left without saying goodbye. In human culture, this was rude but understandable given the circumstances. But D1 had studied Veloran culture for 3 years. He knew their customs. He knew what leaving without a proper farewell meant to them. And that knowledge sat in his chest like a weight he would carry all the way back to Earth. Hira arrived at the research station at dawn, carrying a basket of fresh fruit. She had picked them that morning from her family's garden. D1 liked the purple ones best, even though they were sour by Veloran standards. He said they reminded him of something from Earth called plums. She walked through the main building, nodding to the human researchers she passed. Most of them looked tired. Some were packing equipment into boxes. This seemed strange, but humans were often strange, so Hira thought nothing of it. She knocked on D1's door, no answer. She knocked again and waited, still nothing. "He is gone," a voice said behind her. Hira turned. It was Dr. Stevens, one of the other researchers. Her face looked sad. "Gone where?" Hira asked. "Back to Earth. All of us are leaving. Did no one tell you?" The basket slipped from Hira's hands. Fruit rolled across the floor. "When did he leave?" "Last night. Emergency orders. I am sorry." Dr. Stevens walked away, leaving Hira standing in the empty hallway. The fruit lay scattered at her feet, but she did not move to pick it up. Her mind could not accept what she had just heard. D1 was gone. He had left Velora. He had left without telling her. Hera walked home slowly. Her skin flickered between colors, confusion, hurt, anger. She could not control it. Other Velorans she passed on the street noticed and gave her concerned looks, but no one stopped her. At home, her mother found her sitting in her room, staring at nothing. Hera, what happened? The human researcher left, Hera said quietly. D1, he went back to Earth. Her mother sat beside her. The humans are having problems with our government. Everyone knows this. Perhaps he had no choice. He did not say goodbye, Hera whispered. He did not even tell me he was leaving. Her mother's skin flashed pale with understanding. In Veloran culture, leaving without a proper farewell was serious. It meant one of two things. Either the person was dead and could not say goodbye, or they were rejecting you. They were saying that you did not matter enough for a farewell. Perhaps human customs are different, her mother tried to say. But Hera had spent 3 years teaching D1 about Veloran ways. He knew what a goodbye meant to her people. He knew how important farewells were. He had attended Veloran goodbye ceremonies. He had studied their customs more carefully than any other human researcher. He knew, and he had left anyway. What did I do wrong? Hera asked her mother. I must have offended him somehow. I must have broken some human custom I did not understand. Over the next days, Hera searched through her memories. Every conversation, every meal, every moment she had shared with D1. She looked for signs of her mistake. Had she been too casual with him? Had she asked too many personal questions? Had she made him uncomfortable when she brought him to meet her family? She thought about the last time they had talked, 4 days before he left. They had been in the research station garden and she had been telling him about Veloran music. He had seemed happy. He had smiled at her. His eyes had been warm. Nothing had seemed wrong. Hera spoke to other humans at the research station before they all left. Did D1 say anything about me? She asked them. They looked uncomfortable. He did not talk much before leaving, one of them said. The orders came suddenly. But was he angry with me? Did I do something wrong? I do not think so, the researcher said. But his eyes did not meet hers, and Hera knew humans well enough to know he was not telling her everything. After the last humans departed, Hera felt empty. She tried to return to normal life. She looked for other work. She spent time with her family. But the question followed her everywhere. Why had he left without saying goodbye? In Veloran culture, when someone leaves without a proper farewell, the person left behind must seek answers. It is a matter of honor. If you were rejected, you need to know why so you can learn from your mistake. If the person is in danger, you need to help them. Either way, you cannot simply accept the silence. Hera's father found her in the garden one evening, looking up at the stars. You are thinking about the human, he said. I need to know why he left, Hera replied. I need to understand what I did. And if you never learn the answer, what then? Then I will spend my life wondering, Hera said. And that is worse than any answer could be. Her father was quiet for a long time. Then he said, very few Velorans ever leave our world. The journey to other planets is long and difficult for us. Our bodies do not adapt well to space travel. I know, Hera said. But if you truly need this answer, I will not stop you. Hera looked at her father in surprise. You would let me go to Earth. I would let you find your peace, he said, whatever that requires. Getting permission to leave Velora was complicated. Hera had to speak with government officials. She had to explain why she needed to travel to Earth. Many Velorans thought she was crazy. Why chase after a human who had clearly rejected her? But Hera was not chasing D1. She was chasing understanding. She needed to know the truth. Even if the truth was that he had simply stopped caring about their friendship, she needed to hear him say it. The journey to Earth took weeks. The human transport ships were not built for Veloran passengers. Hira was sick most of the way. The artificial gravity felt wrong. The recycled air smelled strange. The other passengers, mostly human traders and diplomats, stared at her. Velorans rarely traveled off-world. At each stop, Hira used her access to interstellar databases to track D1's movements. She found records of his arrival on Earth. She found his address in a city called Seoul. She learned that he had returned to teaching at a university. A trader on the ship, a kind human woman named Mrs. Park, helped her. "You are going all this way for a man who left you?" Mrs. Park asked. "I am going for answers," Hira corrected. "That is different." Maybe, but be careful. Sometimes the answers we find are not the answers we wanted." "I know," Hira said, "but not knowing is worse." When the ship finally reached Earth's orbital station, Hira felt overwhelming relief. Her body ached from the journey. Her skin had remained a dull gray color for days, a sign of stress and illness. But she was here. She was so close to answers. Earth was beautiful from space, blue and white and green, with clouds swirling across its surface. Hira could see why humans loved their world. It looked alive in a way that pictures could never capture. She went through immigration slowly. The human officials were confused by her arrival. Velorans did not visit Earth. They asked her many questions. What was her purpose? How long would she stay? Did she have contacts on Earth? "I am here to find someone," Hira told them. "A researcher named D1. He worked on my planet." The officials exchanged looks. Eventually they gave her a temporary visa. 30 days, that was all. Hira took a shuttle down to the surface. Seoul was overwhelming, so many buildings, so many people, so much noise. Veloran cities were quiet and open. Seoul felt like being inside a machine. She found D1's address in a database. She stood outside his building, looking up at the windows. Her heart was beating fast. Her skin flickered with colors she could not control: nervousness, hope, fear, anger. What would she say to him? She had practiced the words 1,000 times on the journey, but now that she was here, her mind was blank. She thought about turning around. She thought about going back to the orbital station and taking the next ship home. Maybe her father was right. Maybe some questions were better left unanswered. But she had come so far. She had crossed the space between their worlds. She had left her family and her home. She had made herself sick on the journey. She deserved answers. Hira entered the building and took the elevator to the 5th floor. She walked down the hallway until she found his door, number 507. She stood there for a long moment, her hand raised to knock. Then she thought about all the times D1 had sat across from her at meals, all the conversations they had shared, all the moments when he had smiled at her, when his eyes had been kind. And she thought about how he had left without a word. Hira knocked on the door. She waited. She heard footsteps inside. The door opened. D1 stood there, his eyes going wide with shock. He looked thinner than she remembered, tired. His hair was longer. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Hira looked at him, and all her prepared words disappeared. What came out instead was the only question that mattered. "Why did you abandon me, human?" D1 stared at Hira as if she was a ghost. His hand gripped the door frame, his knuckles turning white. For several seconds he could not speak. "Hira," he finally said. His voice sounded rough. How are you here?" "I came by ship," Hira said. Her skin was flashing red anger. She could not hide it. "I crossed space to find you. Now answer my question. Why did you abandon me?" D1 looked up and down the hallway. "Please, come inside. We should not talk out here." Hira hesitated. Part of her wanted to demand answers right there in the hallway, but she could see the distress on his face, and despite her anger, she still cared about him. That was the worst part. Even now, even after everything, she still cared. She walked into his apartment. It was small and neat. Books lined the walls. Papers covered his desk. A window looked out over the city. D1 closed the door and stood there awkwardly. Can I get you anything? Water, food. Answers, Hira said sharply. That is what I came for. He nodded slowly. He moved to sit on his couch and gestured for her to sit as well. Hira remained standing. She did not want to be comfortable. She wanted the truth. I did not abandon you, D1 said quietly. I had no choice. The government ordered all researchers to leave immediately. There was a political crisis. I was told not to contact anyone on Velora before departure. You knew our customs, Hira said. Her voice shook. You knew what it means to leave without saying goodbye. You studied our culture for 3 years, you knew. I did know, D1 admitted. He looked down at his hands. I thought about it constantly on the journey home, but my supervisor gave me direct orders. She said any contact with Velorans could be seen as sharing sensitive information. She said I could cause problems for all the other researchers. So you chose them over me. I chose to follow orders. I am sorry, Hira, I truly am, but you must understand. No, Hira interrupted. She took a step toward him. You must understand. In my culture, leaving without farewell is the worst insult. It says that person means nothing to you, that they are not worth even basic respect. My family was ashamed. My friends pitied me. Everyone thought you had rejected me. D1 stood up. That was never my intention. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me, and you knew you would. Hira's skin flashed between red and dark blue, anger and deep sadness. We spent 3 years together. I taught you everything about my people. I brought you to my home. I shared meals with you. I thought we were friends. We were friends, D1 said. His voice was urgent now. We are friends. Hira, you were the best part of my time on Velora. You have to believe that. Then why, Hira demanded. Why leave without even a message? Why make me feel like I meant nothing? D1 opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. He turned away from her and walked to the window. Outside, the lights of Seoul glittered in the evening darkness. It is complicated, he finally said. Then explain it to me. I came across the galaxy. I deserve more than it is complicated. D1 was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. If I had said goodbye, I would not have been able to leave. Hira frowned. What does that mean? It means, he stopped, struggling with the words. It means that saying goodbye to you would have been too hard. It means that if I had seen you one more time, I might have refused to board that ship. I might have caused an incident. I might have. He trailed off. Hira stared at his back, her anger slowly mixing with confusion. Why would saying goodbye to me be that difficult? She asked. Before D1 could answer, there was a knock at the door. He looked relieved by the interruption. One moment, he said to Hira, and went to open it. A woman stood in the hallway. She was human, around D1's age, with short hair and a friendly face. She held a container of food. D1, I made too much dinner again and thought you might. She stopped when she saw Hira. Her eyes went wide. Oh, you have a guest. I am sorry, I should have called first. It is fine, Jaiwan, D1 said quickly. This is Hira, she is from Velora. She worked with me during my research. Jaiwan looked between them, clearly sensing the tension in the air. Nice to meet you, she said carefully to Hira. I live next door. I bring D1 food sometimes because he forgets to eat when he is working. Hira nodded but said nothing. Her skin had turned a neutral gray. She did not trust her colors right now. I should go, Jaiwan said, backing toward the door. We can talk later, D1. After Jaiwan left, Hira turned to D1. Is she your mate? What? No, she's just my neighbor, a friend. Humans pair off like Velorans do, yes. One partner. Usually yes, but Jaiwan and I are not. D1 shook his head. Why are you asking this? I am trying to understand, Hira said. She moved closer to him. I am trying to understand why leaving me was so difficult for you, why you could not say goodbye. In Veloran culture, we only avoid farewells with people who mean too much to us, people who we care about in ways that go beyond friendship. D1's face changed. He looked frightened suddenly. Hira, Tell me the truth, Hira said. I came all this way. I made myself sick on the journey. I left my family. I deserve honesty. D1 sat back down on the couch. He put his head in his hands. For a long moment he did not speak. When he finally looked up at her, his eyes were full of pain. You want the truth? Fine, here is the truth. His voice was shaking. I left without saying goodbye because I was falling in love with you, and that was not allowed. My supervisor noticed how much time we spent together. She warned me to keep my distance. She said our relationship was inappropriate. When the evacuation orders came, she made it clear that I was not to contact you. And I thought maybe that was for the best. Because how could anything between us ever work? You are Veloran. I am human. Our worlds barely tolerate each other. Any relationship between us would be impossible. So I thought it would be easier to just leave. To let you think I was a rude human who did not care about your customs. To let you hate me instead of. He stopped. The words hung in the air between them. Hira stood very still. Her skin was flickering through colors rapidly: shock, confusion, hope, fear. She could not process what she had just heard. You had feelings for me, she said slowly. D1 laughed bitterly. I still do. That is why these past months have been terrible. That is why I could not sleep, could not focus on my work. Because I kept seeing your face and wondering if you understood why I left, wondering if you hated me. I did hate you, Hira admitted. Or I thought I did, but hate and hurt are close together. I know. I am sorry. Hira moved to sit beside him on the couch, not too close, but closer than she had been. Why did you think a relationship between us was impossible? Because of 100 reasons: our governments, our biology, the distance between our worlds. What would your family think? What would my colleagues say? How would it even work? Did you ever ask me what I thought? Hira said quietly. D1 looked at her. What? You decided it was impossible. You decided we could not be together. You made this choice for both of us. But did you ever ask me what I wanted? I thought I was protecting you, D1 said. I thought if I just left, you would forget about me and move on with your life. That is not how Veloran hearts work, Hira said. When we care about someone, we do not simply forget. We seek answers. We cross galaxies if we have to. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the city sounds drifted through the window: cars, voices, the distant hum of traffic. I thought I had done something wrong, Hira finally said. I spent weeks searching my memories for my mistake. I thought you left because I had offended you somehow. You never did anything wrong, D1 said. His voice was full of emotion. You were perfect. That was the problem. You were so perfect that I could not keep pretending I only saw you as a colleague or a friend. Hira's skin flickered gold, the color of happiness, of warmth, but it quickly faded back to confused colors. I do not know what to do with this information, she admitted. I came here angry. I came here demanding to know why you abandoned me. I did not expect. I know, D1 said. I did not expect you to come here at all. When immigration contacted me to verify your visit, I thought there was a mistake. Velorans never leave your world. I am not Velorans, Hira said. I am me, and apparently I am someone who crosses space for answers. Apparently so. They looked at each other. There was so much to say, so much to figure out, but at least now the truth was between them. No more silence, no more unanswered questions. At least not about why he had left. Now they had to figure out what came next. The next morning, D1 took Hira into Seoul. She had slept on his couch, both of them too exhausted and emotionally drained to talk more the previous night. Now, in daylight, everything felt strange and uncertain. The city overwhelmed Hira. So many humans, all moving so quickly. Buildings reached into the sky like metal trees. Vehicles rushed past in rivers of metal and glass. The air smelled different from Velora, smoke and food and something electric. "Is it always this crowded?" she asked as they walked. "This is actually a quiet time," D1 said. "Wait until evening." He took her to a small restaurant where they served soup and rice. The owner stared at Hera openly, her skin changing colors as she processed emotions. Most humans had never seen a Veloran in person. "She is beautiful," the owner said to D1 in Korean. D1's face turned red. "She is a friend," he said quickly. "A friend you look at like that. My son looked at his wife the same way before they married." D1 paid for the food and hurried Hera out, his face still red. Hera had not understood the words, but she understood his embarrassment. "What did that woman say?" she asked. "Nothing important. She was just being nosy." They walked to a park where old trees provided shade. It was quieter here. Hera felt her body relax slightly. Too much noise made Veloran stressed. They sat on a bench near a pond. Ducks swam in lazy circles. "Tell me about your life since you returned," Hera said. "Were you happy?" D1 was quiet for a moment. "Happy? No, I was productive. I went back to teaching at the university. I wrote papers about my research on Velora. I tried to keep busy." "But not happy." "How could I be?" He looked at her. "I left the most important work of my life. I left behind the person who made that work meaningful. I followed the rules, but that did not make it easier." Hera watched the ducks. "Can I tell you something? When you first came to Velora, I thought you were like all the other human researchers, curious but cold, interested in my people like we were insects to study. And later I realized you were different. You did not just want to study Velorans. You wanted to understand us. You wanted to know why we did things, not just what we did. You cared." "I did care, I still do." "When did you start having feelings for me?" Hera asked. The question was direct, but Velorans valued directness. D1 thought about it. "I think it was gradual, but there was a moment I remember clearly. It was maybe a year after I arrived. You were teaching me about Veloran music. You were trying to explain how your people use color and light as part of songs. I was not understanding it. You were patient, but I could see you were frustrated." "I remember that day," Hera said. "Then you had an idea. You dimmed the lights in the room and asked me to close my eyes. You started singing and your skin began to glow with the music. I could see it through my eyelids. When I opened my eyes, you were glowing in patterns I had never seen before. You were so focused, so alive. And I thought I could spend my whole life learning about Veloran culture and never see anything more beautiful than this moment." Hera's skin flickered gold. She could not help it. "That is a very human thing to say." "Maybe, but it was true." "When did I start having feelings for you?" Hera said, almost to herself. "I think it was when you met my parents. Most humans were nervous around Veloran families. They did not know how to act, but you were respectful without being afraid. You asked my father about his work. You complimented my mother's cooking. You played games with my little brother. My father said afterward, that human has a good heart. That is when I started to see you differently." They sat in silence, watching the ducks. Around them, humans went about their lives, jogging, walking dogs, pushing strollers. No one paid attention to the human and the Veloran sitting together. "What do we do now?" D1 finally asked. "You have 30 days on your visa, then what?" "I do not know," Hera admitted. "I came here for answers, I got them, but now I have more questions." "Like what?" "Like, did you mean what you said last night, about your feelings?" "Every word." "And do you still think a relationship between us is impossible?" D1 sighed. "I think it would be very difficult. Our governments are still not friendly. Interspecies relationships are not forbidden, but they are not normal either. There would be practical problems, cultural differences. Where would we even live?" "Those are all real problems," Hera agreed. "But they are not impossible problems." Difficult and impossible are not the same thing. You sound like you are considering this, D1 said carefully. Hera turned to look at him. Her skin was shifting through colors, gold and soft blue, happiness and nervousness. I am considering this. I crossed space to find you. I made myself sick on the journey. I left my family. Why would I do all of that if I did not care about you? I thought you came for answers, for closure. I did, but what if the answer is that I have feelings for you too? What if that has been true for longer than I wanted to admit? D1 stared at her. You have feelings for me. Why do you think I brought you fruit every week? Why do you think I spent all my free time with you? Velorans do not do that for just anyone. We are selective about who we let into our lives. I thought you were just being kind, being a good liaison. I was being interested, Hera said, in you, as a person, not as a research subject. A jogger ran past them, giving them a curious look. D1 did not notice. He was too focused on Hera. So what do we do? He asked again. We figure it out, Hera said simply. Together. That is what people do when they care about each other, yes. They face problems together. Before D1 could respond, his phone rang. He looked at it and frowned. It is my colleague, Yunmai. I should take this. He answered the phone, speaking quickly in Korean. His expression grew serious. After a few minutes, he hung up. What is wrong? Hera asked. Yunmai works in the xenobiology department with me. She has connections in the government. She says there are people asking questions about why a Veloran came to Earth. She says we should be careful. Careful how? She wants to meet you. She says she might be able to help. They met Yunmai at her office at the university. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a warm smile. She looked at Hera with open curiosity. A Veloran on Earth, she said in English. I never thought I would see this in my lifetime. Please sit. Hera and D1 sat across from her desk. Yunmai poured tea for all of them. I will be direct, Yunmai said. People in the government are nervous about your visit, Hera. Relations between Earth and Velora are still tense. They worry that your presence here could cause problems. I am not here to cause problems, Hera said. I am here to visit D1. I believe you, but they do not know that. They see a Veloran who came specifically to find a former researcher. They worry about espionage or political statements. That is ridiculous, D1 said. Hera is not a spy. I know that, you know that, but governments are paranoid. Yunmai looked at Hera. Your visa is for 30 days. What happens after that? I have not decided, Hera admitted. Well, you need to decide soon. If you want to stay longer, you will need approval. That approval will depend on why you are here. Yunmai smiled slightly. So I will ask directly, why are you really here? Hera looked at D1. He nodded slightly, encouraging her. I am here because he left without saying goodbye, Hera said. In my culture, that is a serious matter. I needed to know why. And now you know. Yes. And what will you do with that knowledge? Hera took a breath. This was the question, was it not? What came next? I would like to stay, she said quietly. If possible, I would like to see if something between us could work. Yunmai looked at D1. And you? I want her to stay, D1 said. His voice was firm. If there is a way to make it work, I want to try. Yunmai was quiet for a moment, sipping her tea. Then she smiled. Good, because I hate seeing my friend miserable. And D1, you have been miserable since you came back from Velora. So you can help us? D1 asked. Maybe. There is a program for cultural exchange. If Hera could come here as a cultural ambassador, teaching us about Veloran customs, that would give her a legitimate reason to stay. The program allows for extended visas. Would that work? Hera asked. It might. I have contacts in the program. Let me make some calls. Yunmai looked at them both seriously. But you both need to understand something. If you do this, if you pursue a relationship, people will notice. Some will disapprove. Some will question your motives. It will not be easy. I know, D1 said. I know too, Hira added. But not trying seems worse than trying and failing. Yunmai's smile widened. Then let me see what I can do. As they left Yunmai's office, Hira felt something she had not felt since arriving on Earth. Hope. Real hope that maybe, just maybe, this could work. D1 took her hand as they walked through the campus. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. Whatever happens, he said, I am glad you came. So am I, Hira replied. Her skin glowed soft gold in the afternoon sunlight. 2 weeks after Hira arrived on Earth, government officials came to D1's apartment. There were 2 of them, both wearing formal suits. They showed identification from the Department of Interspecies Relations. Their faces were professional and cold. We need to speak with Hira of Velora, the taller one said. Hira stood in the doorway, her skin flashing nervous colors. D1 stepped beside her. What is this about? Official business. May we come in? They sat in D1's small living room. The officials did not accept tea. They opened a folder and placed papers on the table. Hira of Velora, the tall one began. Your temporary visa expires in 16 days. We have reviewed your case and determined that there is no basis for extension. You must return to Velora before your visa expires. Hira felt her heart drop. Beside her, D1 tensed. But we are applying for the Cultural Exchange Program, D1 said. Professor Yunmai submitted the application last week. We are aware of the application. It has been denied. Denied why? The other official, a woman with gray hair, spoke. Current diplomatic relations between Earth and Velora are too unstable for cultural exchange programs. The decision came from the highest levels. That is not fair, Hira said, her voice shook. I am not a diplomat, I am just one person. Unfortunately, you are a Veloran person on Earth. That makes you political whether you intend to be or not. The woman's voice was not unkind, but it was firm. I am sorry, but the decision is final. After the officials left, Hira sat on the couch in silence. D1 paced back and forth, his face angry. This is wrong, he said. They are treating you like a threat. You came here peacefully. You have done nothing wrong. It does not matter, Hira said quietly. They have made their decision. Then we will fight it. We will get lawyers. We will appeal. D1, Hira looked at him. You heard them. The decision came from the highest levels. What can we do against that? We can try. He stopped packing and knelt in front of her. I am not losing you again, not without a fight. Hira touched his face gently. Maybe this is for the best. Maybe the universe is telling us that some things are not meant to be. I do not believe that. You said it yourself when I arrived. You said a relationship between us would be impossible. I was wrong, D1 said fiercely. Or maybe I was right then, but things have changed. You are here. We found each other again. That has to mean something. Over the next days, D1 refused to give up. He called everyone he knew. He reached out to professors, researchers, politicians. He looked for any way to help Hira stay. Jaiwan, his neighbor, helped however she could. She brought them food. She made calls to friends in government. She sat with Hira when D1 was out making desperate visits to officials. He really cares about you, Jaiwan told Hira one afternoon. They were drinking tea in D1's apartment. I have known him for 2 years. I have never seen him fight for something like this. I care about him too, Hira admitted. But I do not want him to destroy his life trying to help me. He could lose his job. He could make enemies in the government, all for a relationship that might not even work. Do you want it to work? Jaiwan asked. Of course, but wanting something and being able to have it are different things. Maybe, but if you give up now, you will never know what could have been, and that kind of regret can eat you alive. Hira thought about that. She thought about returning to Velora without trying. She thought about spending the rest of her life wondering what if. "What should I do?" she asked. Jaiwan smiled. "I think you should fight not just D1, both of you together." That evening, Yunmai came to the apartment with news. She looked tired but determined. "I have been making calls," she said. "I talked to the head of the xenobiology department. I talked to the university chancellor. I talked to some people in the media." And D1 asked, "And I have an idea, but it is risky and it will require both of you to be very public about this." "What kind of idea?" Hira asked. Yunmai sat down. "Right now, the government sees you as a problem. One Veloran on Earth here for unclear reasons. That makes them nervous. But what if we change the narrative? What if we make this about something bigger than just you two?" "Like what?" D1 asked. "Like cultural understanding. Like proving that humans and Velorans can work together, can form meaningful connections. Like showing that cooperation between our species is possible." Yunmai looked at them both. "The university is willing to sponsor you, Hira, as a researcher and cultural educator. We would create a position specifically for you. You would teach about Veloran culture, work on joint research projects, and serve as a bridge between our worlds." "Would the government accept that?" Hira asked. "Not if we ask them quietly. But if we go public, if we present this to the media, to the academic community, to the public, they might not be able to say no. Public opinion matters. If people see value in having you here, the government will have to listen." "But that means telling everyone about us," D1 said. "About our relationship." "Yes, you would need to be honest about why Hira came here, about your connection. The media will ask questions. Some people will criticize, but others might support you." Hira looked at D1. "This could hurt your career." "I do not care about my career if you are not here," he said simply. "But your colleagues, your reputation." "Hira," he took her hands. "I spent 3 years with you on Velora. You showed me your world. You introduced me to your family. You trusted me with your culture and your friendship. Now it is my turn. Let me fight for you. Let me show you that humans can be loyal too." Hira felt her skin glow gold. Tears formed in her eyes. Velorans could cry, though it was rare. "You would do this, risk everything." "Not everything, just some things, and none of them matter as much as you do." Jaiwan, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "I will help too, whatever you need." Yunmai nodded. "We all will. You are not alone in this." They spent the next week preparing. Yunmai arranged a press conference at the university. D1 prepared a statement. Hira practiced speaking to crowds, something Velorans rarely did. The day of the press conference, Hira was terrified. Journalists filled the room. Cameras pointed at them. Questions came fast and sharp. "Why did you come to Earth? What is your relationship with Dr. D1? Is this a political statement?" D1 answered the political questions. He explained the research value of having a Veloran expert at the university. He talked about the importance of cultural exchange. Then Hira spoke. Her voice was quiet at first, but it grew stronger. "I came to Earth because someone I cared about left without saying goodbye. In my culture, this is a serious matter. I needed to understand why." She looked at D1. "I found my answer, but I also found something more. I found that despite our differences, humans and Velorans can form real connections. We can care about each other. We can work together. I want to stay not just for personal reasons, but because I believe I can help build understanding between our peoples." A journalist raised her hand. "Are you saying you are in a relationship with Dr. D1? Hira's skin flickered with nervous colors, but she answered honestly. "I am saying that I care about him and he cares about me. Whether that becomes a formal relationship depends on whether I am allowed to stay. But yes, we want to try." The questions continued. Some journalists were supportive, others were skeptical, but by the end the story was out there. A Veloran and a human trying to bridge the gap between their worlds. Over the next days, the response was mixed. Some people thought it was beautiful, Others thought it was dangerous. The story spread through media channels. People debated on social platforms. Some Velorans even sent messages of support from Hera's home world. Hera's mother called her. "You are famous now," she said. "The whole planet is talking about my daughter who went to Earth for love." "It is not just about love," Hera said. "It is about understanding." "All great things start with caring about someone," her mother replied. "Your father and I support you, whatever happens." 5 days before Hera's visa expired, they received a message from the Department of Interspecies Relations. D1's hands shook as he opened it. He read it in silence. Then he looked at Hera, his eyes bright. "They approved it," he said. "The university sponsorship, you can stay." Hera's skin exploded in gold light. She laughed and cried at the same time. D1 pulled her into his arms, and they held each other as Jaiwan and Yunmai cheered. The approval came with conditions. Hera would need to report regularly to the government. She would need to maintain her position at the university. Her visa would be reviewed annually, but she could stay. That evening they walked through Seoul together. The city no longer seemed so overwhelming to Hera. It was starting to feel familiar, starting to feel like it could be home. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we figure it out," D1 said. "Together, one day at a time." "It will not be easy." "No, but nothing worth having is easy." They stopped at the same park where they had talked weeks before. The ducks were still there, swimming in the pond. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that reminded Hera of Velora. "I have a question," Hera said. "If I had not come to Earth, if I had accepted your departure and moved on with my life, would you have been okay?" D1 thought about it. "Maybe eventually, but I would have spent my life wondering, regretting, missing you." He squeezed her hand. "I am glad you came. I am glad you did not give up on us." "So am I." They sat on the bench as the sun set. Around them, humans went about their lives. Above them, stars began to appear. Somewhere up there was Velora, Hera's home world. But here on Earth, sitting beside D1, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. "Why did you abandon me?" Hera said softly, repeating the question that had brought her across space. D1 smiled. "I did not abandon you, I just took a different path, and you followed." "I did. I am glad." "Me too." They sat together as darkness fell, two people from different worlds who had found each other against all odds. The journey had been hard. The future would be uncertain, but they would face it together, and that made all the difference.